With the rise of AI and the approach of the mid-2020s, we're nearing a future that we only perceived in media that we watched as kids, and it's starting to become apparent that we're seeing a revival of that. I think of such films as Mission Impossible, where the main antagonist is actually an AI software or whatever, and there was a recent Terminator anime that was released on Netflix that I'm currently watching, and by the first episode, it's pretty good. I love it. In video games, we have Astrobot, which right now, this is currently my favorite game of the year. If you guys want me to do a full-on video of this amazing video game, like this video, I'll see what I can do. I'm currently playing the new Legend of Zelda right now, but I love Astrobot. This game is great. And it was only a matter of time when our children of today would experience their own versions of a possible future, or at the very least, just experience some good films about robots. I want to talk about these two films in particular that I saw throughout the last couple of weeks. I'm going to be talking about Transformers 1 and The Wild Robot. I want to state that these movies deserve their own videos. They merit that, but unfortunately, I've just been so busy with setting up my new set. I just moved recently and I have a whole lot of other videos that I want to touch on. And right now, this is just a quicker option for me to dive into these movies in one video. And yeah, and I feel as though this format works because not only is it just films about robots, but they're really good animated films. I just feel as though, even though the films are different in terms of tone and plot and everything, also, the films just really surprised me. So yeah, let's just dive right into this. When I was growing up, I was a huge fan of Transformers. My first iteration of Transformers was Transformers Robots in Disguise from like 2001. It was that anime one. I believe the majority of the Transformers cartoons that I watched were anime. The whole idea of Transformers in my mind as a kid were cartoons. I watched Transformers Armada. I watched Transformers Energon. We don't talk about that because Optimus Prime looks just god-awful in that. I don't know what they were doing with him in that show. It was almost like they were trying to make him like their own Voltron, where he had different colored limbs and everything. I hated his design. I saw Transformers Cybertron as a kid, which had one of my favorite iterations and looks of Optimus Prime. I think somebody did like a fan-made demo reel of like their FX skills and actually took the clip from Transformers 1 and made it into the Transformers Cybertron Optimus Prime. That looks great. The fact that that's a fan-made thing is amazing. So you probably guessed when I figured out that they were making a live-action Transformers film at the age of 12, I lost my mind. That film was just such a pivotal moment in like culture and what films could do. It just seemed like the bar was lifted in terms of technology and everything. I remember that being like one of my most anticipated films ever. Like the trailer when they like they go to the moon and there's like that silhouette of a robot on the moon. It was just like my 12-year-old mind blew up and I was very excited to see the movie. Saw it, loved it, saw it again. I think that was like one of the first few movies that I saw twice at the theaters. And just because Transformers was elevating in live action, it didn't necessarily mean that they were done with animation. There was a show that was released right after the movie to profit off the movie, I guess. It was called Transformers Animated. And that was actually really good. I was so sad that that got canceled, but they finally left the anime format and it was like, I believe it was an American produced show and it just felt so different at the time. They even changed the voice of Optimus Prime. The point that I'm trying to make here is Transformers clearly has had a history of animation outside of live action. And when I found out that they were finally making a Transformers film set on Cybertron with no humans, and it was going to be animated, it was a little off-putting, but then I kind of recognized that this is what Transformers has kind of always been. They were cartoons to promote selling toys to children. I think when that first trailer came out for Transformers 1, a lot of people were a little skeptical, not only with just like the animation style, but the tone of the movie itself. It definitely felt like a kid's movie. It felt like it was trying to be funny and lighthearted. Regardless though, I still wanted to see it, and when I saw it last week, I was blown away by how much I loved this film. Transformers 1 is probably my favorite Transformers film out there. I think it does a lot of stuff right. It does a lot with how we perceive with Transformers since the live action films in 2007, where it's just mindless robots and humans that we just unfortunately do not give a shit about. Whereas we finally have a film where it's set on their home planet there's no humans at all, and you actually finally recognize that the Transformers are characters in this film that grow from beginning, middle to end. So basically what the movie's about is an origin story of Optimus Prime and Megatron when they were minor bots on Cybertron. They weren't even bots that could transform, and they were known as Orion Pax and D16. We've seen variations of this origin story before, where sometimes we see Optimus Prime and Megatron just meeting and they're already the way that they are. There's been mention before of how they were originally friends or brothers, and we didn't really know a whole lot about that backstory. It was just mentioned in dialogue, whereas this is a film that showcases them being friends on this planet. When they find out that the leaders of their homeworld have not been truthful about certain things, as to them finding the leadership of Matrix and why Energon is running low, it leads to them and other Transformers such as Bumblebee and Alita finally getting the power to transform, and they go on this quest in trying to figure out how to make Cybertron a better world that is more equal to all bots. Like I said, the trailer really perceived this movie to be very wholehearted and a kid's film, and there is a lot of that stuff in here. There is like comedy, specifically from Bumblebee, which we'll get into, but I was really surprised to find out that the film actually has a lot of serious tones. Clearly, you know that these two characters are going to transition into the characters that we know today. They're going to be enemies, but it's really hard to kind of believe that at first when you see them as friends and it's a kid's film. But as the film moves along and they're finally able to transform and they recognize that they have this power, some of them want to use these newfound abilities for different reasons or different purposes, where Orion Pax recognizes that he has a way to fix the future, and D16 is like, no, people need to pay for what they've done to us. This was kept from us. There's a scene in the movie where D16, Megatron, says this very like dark line. You'll know what I'm talking about when you see the film. And all of the characters and the audience in the movie theater just kind of go dead silent. And you recognize, oh, this is the part where he starts to change as a character. And I think it's done really well. When I saw that initial trailer, I had my doubts as to how these certain characters would transition into the characters that we know today. But the film does a pretty excellent job, and you have an understanding of where all the characters are at, where their mindset is for certain individuals that they have resentment for. And apparently, from my understanding, I read somewhere that this is the first in a new trilogy for Transformers, and I'm on board. I really want to see more from this franchise. In terms of the animation, I think a lot of people, when they saw that initial trailer, they were maybe hoping for something as awe-inspiring as, I don't know, Spider-Verse or whatever, that choppy frame rate animation that we've seen in Puss in Boots and other films. And I think a lot of people were disappointed in that, especially just in the design of the characters. I don't think a lot of people really liked what they were seeing compared to like the last Transformers movie that we saw. But I gotta admit, the animation is really good. I love the color in this. I saw this in 3D. There is a nice rim lighting effect on the character, nice lens flares that really bring out the world, this metallic sci-fi feel to Cybertron. And I think it just goes to show that an animated film doesn't necessarily need to mimic Spider-Verse in order to be a good looking film. It just needs to be good looking. I think all the voice actors do a great job as well. When I heard that Chris Hemsworth got the part of Optimus Prime, I was like, that's good. I love his voice, and it really works within this film. If he is no longer Thor in the future and he decides that he wants to be the new Optimus Prime, if Peter Cullen decides not to do it anymore, I think Chris Hemsworth really works as his character. I also liked Brian Tyree Henry as D16, who turns into Megatron. I think he does a really good job with being this lighthearted character who's friends with Optimus Prime, and then when he has to get to the point of being Megatron, it really just, like I said, it works because you feel the anger in his voice when he finds out that this thing has been done to him, and it's such a great transition, especially in his voice acting, that it just makes it work. It's good to hear ScarJo as well. Makes sense. She was in the movie Her, so another AI robot thing. So it's cool that like she's in Transformers. Steve Buscemi as Starscream. I did not know that I needed that in my life. That is a great choice. That just really worked so well. And I'm sure a lot of you are going to ask what I thought of Keegan-Michael Key as Bumblebee. Not my favorite pick for Bumblebee. I don't know. I understand that like Bumblebee is such a beloved character in Transformers now since that 2007 film. He's such a pop culture icon that they wanted to get a voice actor to have a lot of comedic lines and stuff like that. He isn't bad in the film. I think it's just how the character is presented as like just almost this kind of Olaf character in the film, where he is just very happy to be there and just always talking, which is something that's acknowledged in the film, that he just won't shut up. And the character, there's some good dialogue between the characters, but sometimes it did get annoying. There were times where I heard him talking and I'm like, oh, that works. Yeah, I could see him as Bumblebee if he would just stop being so annoying. But for the most part, I think he did a good job, and I'd like to see him further the character in future iterations. I will say that the cons that I have for this film is that it does feel like other films before it, specifically animated films. It does feel like Robots, with the Robin Williams film Robots. You're probably thinking like, Corbin, that's not fair. Just because it's about robots doesn't necessarily mean they're the same thing. There's just like tones of like low, middle, high class, like commentary in the film that's definitely prevalent throughout. If you don't want me to use robots, fine. Okay. Bug's Life. It just, there is definitely like that commentary throughout where it's like the little man trying to prevail against the high order or whatever. So there's that. It also ironically feels like the second animated Bionicle film, the Metro Nui one, where the little Bionicles like get the power to become like the Toas in that film. There's definitely similarities in that, especially in the transformation scene. Overall, I mean, pushing all that aside and just looking at the film for what it is, I think it's a really good start for what Transformers needs to be. And you have to recognize that originally Transformers was a kid's property. It was a cartoon in the 80s used to sell toys to children. And I got to admit, when I saw this film, I felt like buying an Optimus Prime figure that was based on the character from this film. Unfortunately, a lot of the toys from Transformers 1 look like fucking McDonald's toys. Like, I just want a good looking, like, Transformers line. Like, I don't know. It just, when I go to Target, it just seems like all the Transformers there are just small or very plasticky. I just miss the days where, like, Transformers toys actually looked legit and I didn't have to pay $900 to $1,000 to buy a good looking Transformers toy just so I could transform it automatically. It's just like, I don't know, there just needs to be more to the toys nowadays, and I don't want to spend a whole lot of money like those MP line whatever toys that are like $200. I just want Transformers toys at Target to look like, oh, I'd buy that. Like, I don't know. If there's any recommendations down below that you guys could tell me, if there's a certain line that I should be looking at, let me know. But I don't know. I've not been a fan of some of the Transformers toys as of late. That's why you don't really see a whole lot in my background, is because I don't know. I don't really like them. But in terms of this film, pushing the shitty toy line out of the way just for a second. In terms of this film is great. I really want to see what they do more with these iterations of these characters. I want to see how it progresses. Maybe we can get a film where they finally get to Earth. I know we love Cybertron and everything, but I think it would be very interesting kind of to see what we know of the Transformers and how they progress this war onto Earth soil and everything. But I'm okay with a second film after this still taking place on Cybertron. We got the origin story. They're Optimus and Megatron now. Now I want to see what that's like, that war on Cybertron. Maybe it could be close to the video games, War for Cybertron. I played that when I was a kid. Those games were absolutely amazing. People love them because they took place on Cybertron. I don't know. It seems weird that like we are finally getting a Transformers movie solely on Cybertron. I don't know why the movie's always focused on these characters that we don't give a shit about, but I will say that they started getting better after Bumblebee. Bumblebee was a great film, and Transformers Rise of the Beast has a lot of great scenes. I don't know, this is just like the first film in a while where I'm like, man, Transformers is back. I love what they did with the characters. I love some of the actors that they chose to present these characters, and I want to see more. So yeah, go see Transformers 1. I was very surprised. So yeah, let's talk about The Wild Robot, which was such a huge surprise. So this was a film, Lisa actually sent me the trailer to this while I was at work and I watched it. And I was like, oh yeah, that looks great. Like we try to like find movies that she can watch, because I usually watch a lot of horror movies or a lot of violent movies. So we try to like find movies that kind of meet a middle ground where it's thoughtful but also entertaining at the same time. And it's funny because the problem that I had with Transformers 1 was mainly the marketing, and how the marketing tried to perceive it as like this funny film, which was, and it was, but there were a lot of serious parts in the film. Whereas with this film in particular, it had almost zero to none marketing at all. A lot of it that I saw was online. I saw that one trailer, didn't really see a whole lot after that, and we just decided to see the movie this weekend. And this film is such a, it's such a literal treasure. It's the kind of film that you just find, and once you watch it, there's so much to take away from it. It has a lot of good messages, and I'm not a father yet, but I imagine the kind of films that I would like to show my kids as they grow up, in order for them to gain something personal from it. Such films that I think of a lot that I would like to show them are Paddington and stuff like that. And this is another film that I would like to show. This is essentially, it's a modern day The Iron Giant, where we have a robotic character who is really trying to find this type of humanity. And it's ironic too, because the humanity is found when she's interacting with the animals in this woods. They do a lot of creative stuff where we have this robot who is lost in shipment, who lands into this wooded area, and she has to spend a lot of time there to update her firmware in order to understand the animals around her, which is a very creative way in how we hear the dialogue for most of the wildlife in this film. Which, by the way, there are so many people in this film that contribute to the voice acting. Pedro Pascal is the fox, and it just works. I'm so happy that they got him specifically for this role, because I feel like a lot of people, when they find out that he's in the movie will start to gain some numbers, but it just works overall for the character. He's able to maintain this clever trickster mentality of a fox that we've seen before in other animated films. Like, I was thinking about Zootopia while watching this, but he does a really good job with making this version of an animated fox his own. Also, the legend Mark Hamill is a bear in this film. Catherine O'Hara voices a mother possum in the film, which also loved her in Beetlejuice, so love that we're seeing her more frequently throughout films and television and stuff like that. Ving Rhames makes an appearance as a hawk in this film. I was like, oh my god, it's Ving Rhames! And of course, I can't forget Lupita Nyong'o as Roz the robot in this film. She does such an excellent job with perceiving this character throughout this film, who essentially has no facial expressions whatsoever, but you understand her task at hand. You understand that she is just a robot who wants to cater to whoever she finds in the woods. And then when she finally finds this task that is the product of an accident that causes a mother goose to die, and then you see her raising this baby goose from hatch to basically a full-on goose. It's such an emotional story with so many angles to it, but when you find out the point of the story itself, that's when the film is just something, it's just beautiful. It has such a great message to it that I think a lot of people can take from it, where if you find yourself in a certain situation due to outside causes, but then you look back and you recognize, oh, the whole reason I'm here is because of the incident in the first place, and looking at the positives of it and recognizing that things could be worse. It's such a beautiful message in recognizing the people that we have in our lives and not taking them for granted. And there's also a beautiful plot that involves, if you have a chance to say I love you to someone, don't take that for granted, and always have a chance to say that. And not only is the plot and the voice acting just so well done, it's just a beautiful film overall. If you have a problem with Transformers 1 just looking like a basic CG looking film, or if that's just your opinion, this is very similar to that of Puss in Boots or The Bad Guys, where every frame feels like the product of a paintbrush. It just feels amazing looking at the textures in this, specifically with the wildlife, and seeing just like the strokes that are in their furs and stuff like that, and seeing all the frames move together in sequence, and recognizing that this took such a huge amount of work. it's just, not only is this just a beautiful plot, it's a beautiful film to look at overall. It's just a beautiful film. I don't really know how to explain it, but like, I just think that this film really definitely needs to be seen. We actually did end up seeing The Iron Giant a few months back. Our community does like this thing where we're able to watch films outside for a low ticket price. And it was just so interesting seeing that film from the lens of an adult. Like, I enjoyed it as a kid, but then seeing the actual message of the film and what it's trying to say about gun violence and finding humanity, it's just, I was just shocked that like I was able to soak this in as an adult. And I think a lot of kids, when they're grown up in 20 years or so and they rewatch this film, I think they're gonna cry. So yeah, guys, that was my review of both Transformers 1 and The Wild Robot. Like I said, I think these films really deserve their own videos. They totally merit that. I just felt as though with the amount of time that passed by for both of these films, I just wanted to get my thoughts out there in one video. I would like to make more individual videos in the near future. I feel like now that's more plausible since I finally got my set up and ready. I might actually do a video where I showcase my set and the stuff in the background, even my lighting setup. So if you'd like to see that video, please like this video. And if you'd like to see a review of Astrobot, I don't know when I'm going to do a review of this because like I said, I'm playing Zelda right now. Right now, it's my favorite game of the year. What I'll do is I'll maybe talk about it at the end of the year. I want to do this thing where like I talk about my favorite games of the year. So maybe I'll do like one video stating like Astrobot, my favorite game of the year. I don't know. It's a really good game and I really think you guys should check it out. And also the movies that we talked about today. I really love these movies. I think they're really good animated films. If you have any kids, I think they'll really enjoy it as well. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for being patient with me as I set up this new set. Like I said, I just moved into my new home and I'm loving it. So yeah, comment down below what you thought of these movies. If you've seen them, like this video, share it, and please subscribe to support me and the channel. And I really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. I'm Corbin Stuckey, and thank you for watching.